So I was working on Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency with Elijah Wood, from Lord of the Rings and other stuff. And I had known, oh shit, he's in this scene that I'm in today. Like, I'm going to get to meet him. This is pretty cool. And before they film the scene, usually they have like the director and all the actors stand in a circle with their scripts and they just read the scene out. They just do a reading and then they do a blocking. A blocking is where they figure out where everyone's going to stand at what moments and stuff like that. And so the reading, I just look up and he's just there like where you are, Brandon, like just right across from me. I'm like, oh shit, like he's right there. And then after that, I had a little conversation with him and just instantly he has this way of making you feel like you're just talking to anyone.
What is going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and welcome to another episode of the Feature Podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Ajay. We actually went to high school together. Ajay is an actor and a musician, and I'm going to have him introduce himself, talk about some of the shows he's been in, which a lot of you may have seen. So in this episode, we're going to talk about like the world of acting, getting into it. I mean, you're pretty young. You're younger than me. We went to the same high school, and also talk a little bit about like the production and how like a Netflix series works, because obviously Netflix and their original content has really blown up in the past couple years, and they've been killing it in that area, obviously with some very well-known shows, Riverdale and stuff. So I think it's, as someone who is in a different side of media and production, it would be really interesting for us all to learn about kind of your world in that space. So the first question that we have is kind of just a introduction to Riverdale and Lost in Space, and kind of like a 30-second rundown of your role and the show itself.
Okay, for sure. So in Lost in Space, I play Vijay Dar. He is the son of the colony leader, Victor Dar, and he's also the love interest / friend of Penny Robinson, who's the middle Robinson child. And the show takes place 30 years in the future, where Earth has kind of become mostly uninhabitable, and they've discovered a new planet, and they've discovered technology to get people to it, and people from all different countries everywhere around the world, if they pass like the aptitude test, then they get to go on one of the trips there. It's a one-way trip, and you colonize the new planet. And on our specific mission 24, something goes wrong. We get stranded in the middle of space. It's called Lost in Space. No communication to Earth, no communication to the colony, and we're all just lost there. So, yeah.
So pretty much what people would love to start doing about right now.
Yeah, it's only 30 years in the future.
Yeah,
wow, that sounds like it should be 300 years in the future.
Elon's already working on it.
Yeah, right? He wasn't kidding about our world ending in 20 years. And what was the other role in Riverdale?
On Riverdale, I play Eddie. Eddie's it's probably one of my youngest characters I've ever played. He's probably about 15.
I mean, you look like you're 15.
Yeah, yeah. He's this kind of kid who's gone into some trouble on the streets, and there's this really terrible guy named Dodger who's using all these kids to perform kind of petty crimes for him, and if they get caught, they go to juvie for a couple months, and then they're free out on the street again, and they can keep on getting exploited in this gang. And then Archie kind of tries to put a stop to it, kind of befriends my character, tries to talk him out of it, but it's not so easy, because the situation that my character and a lot of these kids are in is really, really troubling. So yeah, it's a kind of actually a deep storyline with that.
Is it still ongoing?
I'm not sure. I was in about 4 or 5 episodes, I think, and I think my character could come back or it could not. I'm not sure.
What determines if a character comes back or not?
I think it's the overall plot of the story. Like, what's the story they're trying to tell? I mean, I think a lot of these characters were kind of to tell Archie's story of trying to. I mean, also Archie's dad died, right? Because Luke Perry, the actor, died. And I think a big part of season 4 was Archie kind of trying to become a mentor to younger people and kind of follow in his dad's footsteps in that way. And I think these kids in this plot were a big part of telling that story.
I'd love to know back, kind of take us back to like how you even got into acting, what was interesting about it for you, and the starting process.
And how like in high school, I remember Smoo likes to do like the school play. Was it every other year?
Yeah, in high school it's every year, and then in middle school it's every other year.
Yeah. And you were the main character for pretty much all of them. I remember back in middle school, not that I was very involved in that area, but like obviously the posters and everything, we saw what was going on, and so like, is that where it kind of started, or were you like always wanting to do a little bit of acting? You mentioned that you really enjoy music, and that's been a big part.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about is Oliver when you were in grade 8 and I was in grade 7. Yeah, and that was around when I started acting. I mean, I started acting because my sister was doing community theater, and I loved, performing and entertaining and probably being the center of attention and stuff like that. I don't know. And I just joined community theater just for fun. I just started acting in these plays. I started acting in the school musical. I got cast as Oliver Twist in Oliver, and that was really, really fun. And I love singing too, so that was great. And I remember like 3 weeks after closing night, my voice like had already changed to the point where I couldn't, because it was grade 7, right? So I couldn't sing those songs anymore. Like just like a couple weeks after it ended. Yeah. But yeah, I just started doing community theater slowly, like I guess made a good impression on the adults in charge and got some connections around town and kind of started acting in more professional productions around town. Like I did 5 shows for Pacific Opera Victoria, which is at the Royal Theatre downtown. I slowly started auditioning for film and television, got an agent, barely booked anything for my first like 6 years of auditioning for screen, all the while I was getting theater experience though. And then, kind of.
Through that process of 6 years of auditioning and you didn't get any major roles?
Yeah, I remember my second audition I ever did, I booked. And it was a 1 episode guest star on this YTV Disney XD show called Mr. Young. And I was playing Rupinder, the Indian exchange student. So typical. And I remember that was my second audition. I was like, this is easy. Like I got like a couple $1,000 paycheck. I was like, this is incredible. Like maybe I can get like 4 or 5 of these roles a year. I can get everyone super nice Christmas presents. Like this is going to be sweet. And then I didn't book another screen role for like 3 years, I think. But that kind of like when you're just starting out and your resume is not very long yet, it can take like years and years. Like you were talking about doing YouTube for like 4 or 5 years before. Yeah. Like even. And then when you put in the work, eventually
it all comes into play.
But if you didn't put in those early years, you wouldn't be in the position and you wouldn't have the skills and the experience to be able to do what you're doing now. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's like, they say the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So
nobody ever regrets the journey. It would be nice to like, people always want like things to happen quicker, but I think once you look back at it and once everything's fallen into place many years down the road, whether it's 6 years, 10 years or all that, once you reach that place, it's much more satisfying than if it was like kind of all
overnight.
Once, right?
Totally. And you get more and more used to it. And it's really about the journey. And I remember getting my first lead role for screen, which was 20 episodes, one of the leads on this YTV and Netflix show called Reboot: The Guardian Code. I got that when I was 18, and I remember like getting it and then it just clicking. I was looking back on all the plays I had ever done, all the school musicals I had ever done, all those experiences that had just been for fun. They had just been because I was passionate about it. I wasn't trying to make a career or anything, but I remember thinking like if I hadn't done like 1 or 2 of those, maybe I wouldn't be in the place to be able to book this role right now. Like maybe I wouldn't have the emotional experience or the acting experience to be able to accomplish that. So it's like, I don't know, it makes you think. There's even stuff that you're working towards every day that'll come in the future and you have no idea what those things are. But when they happen, then you'll look back and be like, well, probably wouldn't have happened if I wasn't doing this every day or I wasn't doing that every day or every year or whatever.
Yeah, and when it comes to like getting discovered for these, when you're doing like local plays, are there usually people who cast for different series who are in attendance, or they find it through that way? Because I know like Vancouver has been said to be like a new like hotspot for TV shows and movies to be filmed because it is so versatile. There's plenty of nature as well, and Netflix seems to have chosen BC as a pretty popular destination to film a lot of shows. So do they cast like regionally, or does your agent go out and find different gigs, or is it just like somebody in the crowd at the right time, right day caught it and they go back and say, we got to bring this guy on?
So you're asking about casting for
yeah,
film
like
television
kind of the process
BC?
With
how you get into like most TV shows and movies is often through auditioning, and how you get auditions is your agents submit you for different roles, right? So they get the breakdowns of every character, which is the descriptions of every character.
Yeah.
And they look at their roster of people they represent, and they'll go, I'll submit this person for this person for this person for this. The production gets like your headshot, your resume, maybe a demo reel. They say, yes, we want you to audition, or no, we don't. If they say no, I never hear about it. If they say yes, I get an email with the audition date, and that's the first time I ever hear about the role, right? So all that's already happened. I didn't know about it. But now I get this email. It says, this is due. It's either a self-tape or in the room. So a lot of auditions, like my first 2 auditions for Lost in Space were self-tapes that I filmed in a hotel room with my friends.
Which do you prefer?
There's benefits to both. There's definitely benefits of being in the room. There's also I really enjoy like the adrenaline of being in the room and kind of the pressure, and you only have like 1 or 2 times to make it the best. Whereas a self-tape, sometimes you're like more relaxed because you know you can do 30 takes if you want and pick the best one, but in a way that's not, sometimes that makes you not commit the whole way, you know what I mean? So there's benefits to both, but I mean it is also nice to self-tape and to do 30 takes and then pick the best one.
Do you leave all of the role finding up to your agent?
For the most part, yeah. My agent and my managers, they all kind of work as a team, and normally I'll get emails of all sorts of different types of roles, and it's not really one genre of role that I'm auditioning for, but occasionally, like when I heard they were making a live action Aladdin, I called my agent. I was like, just letting you know, like, please be on the lookout for when this is casting. I would love to audition for Aladdin. And it wasn't casting out of Vancouver, it was casting out of Toronto, but my agent managed to get me a self-tape in for the Toronto casting office. So I sent that in. And yeah, I didn't get it, but the guy who got it, actually, Mina Masood, he's represented by the same agency that I'm represented by, the characters. Yeah, he's Canadian.
What kind of preparation goes into a role? Like, on average, how much time do you spend, and like, what's like kind of the mental preparation you need?
The first time you read through, like, for example, for auditions, I probably spend like 5 to 10 hours on every audition, I'd say. And the first time reading it, everything is awkward, the lines sound weird, but the more and more familiar you make something, and the more, just the more familiarized you become with the role, then the more real it seems, and much more, it's much easier to just give off a realistic sounding line, right?
Do they give you like, okay, this character is like exaggerated, he's like angry, or like he has inner pain, like the words that like describe the character, and then you have to embody that?
Yeah, they give a character description, and they give you the sides, which are the scenes you're auditioning for, either in the room or the self-tape. And sometimes they will send you the whole script as well, so you can get a greater context.
Have you had to do like a Skype one, like the Master of None one, where he is at the coffee shop and he jumps disease and he's like screaming at it like the blood of the sickening?
I've never done a Skype audition, but I've done Skype meetings with like directors or producers who have maybe seen my first tape, and they're like, okay, we want to have a meeting with you to kind of discuss how we want you to lay down another tape with these notes. But I've never actually like acted out the scene over the internet, but I want to do that, and I know that people do that.
Did you think that was there a point where roles just started to roll in? Like,
yeah,
I mean, it seems like you've been landing roles no problem over the last year and a half, 2 years, and it's great to see this sort of success coming your way. But when did that start to happen?
Well, it was the summer after high school, so I was 18 years old, and I was planning on taking a gap year and going to do like a math internship in Australia, and then going and then I was planning on going to university the next year and studying like science and math, and I didn't have acting in my plan at all.
So I know, what was so fascinating about like math?
I love math. I don't know. It's just always
it is cool.
Made
like
sense to me. Yeah.
It's like accounting.
I had the worst math grade for an Asian in my entire grade, and I'm not even joking. Like, it was by a mile. It was like a C-.
It's because you didn't try. You were too busy.
I was also too
reviewing
stupid.
HDMI cords.
But when it really happened was the summer after I graduated, and I went to an audition that was just like any other audition I had been to. Right. It was for the kids show Reboot: The Guardian Code. Mm-hmm. Which is YTV and Disney XD, and they just kept on calling me back all summer. I probably went to 5 or 6 auditions for that same role all summer, so they were really interested in me, and they kept on calling me back, but they hadn't made their decision. And then I remember when I finally booked that, I was actually at Four Horsemen downtown, which is a nice clothing store, and there was this sweet bomber jacket, and I was like, I really want this, but it was just like a stupid price. Like I never spend a lot of money on clothes, but my friend was like, hey, if you book that show that you've been waiting to hear about, you gotta get this. And I was like, okay, well, I could book the show, like I could find out tomorrow, or I could find out in a month. And so, if the jacket's still available, I'll get it if I book the show. And then I was driving away that day, and my agent called me and told me I got it. So I went right back and I bought that jacket.
On the topic of like things rolling in, obviously in like the influencer industry, you can try to do multiple things at once because you're making a video, you can shuffle your schedule, you can send staff to stuff. But when it comes to acting, you're the only one. And a lot of these shows might take like 6 or 7 months to film at a time, if that's correct. Mm-hmm. Has there ever been a situation where you've auditioned for multiple things at once, not knowing which one you would get? You end up having a first and second choice, but then you might have been accepted for your second choice first and then heard back from the first choice.
Yeah.
There's like a schedule overlap.
When I was filming my first lead role, which was for Reboot the Guardian Code, we were working hard like 5 or 6 days a week on trying to get all 20 episodes done. And I booked this other role for this smaller web show, and I couldn't do it because a couple of the dates conflicted with Reboot, and I was super bummed out. And then I ended up like a week later or two booking Lost in Space, and if I had taken that other show or been able to do it, it would have conflicted with Lost in Space, and I never would have gotten that role. And Lost in Space was like a way bigger gig. And so sometimes when something doesn't work out, it's kind of because there's something better that's waiting for it.
Happens for a reason. So you never regret like, oh, like if I could have done this and that. It always end up, every time you miss something better is on the...
you never know. The thing about regret is like you always imagine it's going to be, it would have been better a different way, but maybe it would have been worse, or maybe, maybe things are actually better this way.
So what is like a day in life on set? I know it's like it's probably very different each day. Different. What time do you have to wake up? What's the process? How long does it take to get like hair and makeup planning, or what's like the kind of structure on your calendar for an average day?
A couple weeks before, you get the shooting schedule, and it tells you which scenes you're going to be doing on which days, so you can get prepped for that. And then the night before, you get the call sheet, and it tells you maybe like what time your pickup is, what time you need to be in hair, makeup, and wardrobe, and then when you're on set by, and then it tells you like what scenes you're doing, what time, right? So you can be picked up anywhere from like 4 a.m. to like 6 p.m., so I've had some really, really early mornings, and I've had some times where I'm just chilling in my hotel room until like 5 p.m. and then going to set. Where
would be a circumstance where they'd need you at 4 a.m. specifically?
So sometimes you have like a lot of makeup or hair that you need to do for like a specific scene or something, and so you could be they could have allotted 1 or 2 hours, or in the case of like huge prosthetics or something put on you, sometimes people spend like 5 or 6 hours in a makeup chair. People literally sleep in them.
I did see that with the Night King, the preparation for every time he was on set. I mean, putting on the horns and the face, it was like 10 to 12 hours of prep and makeup.
I can imagine people getting pretty tired of it.
And even like sometimes it's like for a really short clip, right? So you're on the makeup chair all day and you do like a quick 2 words.
Yeah, and then you're like, or if it's like a really orc or something.
That's it, scene over.
Yeah. But so basically, if you're not self-driving, if you have a driver, you go outside at a certain time, and they're there. They drive you to set. You usually walk into your trailer, and all your clothes are there for the scene, and you get changed. You head to hair, makeup, and wardrobe, get your hair and makeup done, and then you just kind of hang out until they're ready for you on set. And someone will come and get you and bring you to set, and you can go to craft services if you want some food or coffee or tea.
How's the food on set?
The food is quite often very, very good. Nice. And they have 2 different food departments. They have catering, which is all the meals, and then they have craft services, which is often like a different company doing that. And craft services is like usually like the first aid and all the snacks and tea, coffee, everything. And normally they have a pretty big selection, and everything from like healthy food to junk food and everything like that. And then catering is usually just delicious, and everyone eats everyone eats the same food, all the crew, all the cast, everything. Nice. From the producers to lighting to makeup to actors to drivers to everything. Yeah.
Is it better than Brown Hall?
Yeah, yeah.
If you know, you know.
When you were on a YTV set, what did you notice when you hit the Netflix set and difference of budget and difference of setup?
So I've been on 5 Netflix originals, and they've all been kind of different. You know, like Netflix doesn't do everything the same. You know, they have different levels of budgets, different like partner production companies. For example, Lost in Spaces with Legendary Pictures, and Riverdale is actually a CW show in the U.S. and Netflix has the rights to it, like outside of the U.S. And in the U.S. too. I don't know if they share something, but every production is different with budget and stuff like that. But there's a lot of standards among all of them. Like you're always kind of in a trailer.
What sort of budget difference did you notice when you went from season 1 to season 2?
Or even like between shows, say like Riverdale versus, whereas like Riverdale is like a household name that we all hear about. And then, so like in addition to that question, it's sort of like does Netflix have like their own teams for like logistics, camera, all that, or they kind of allocate depending on the project, and they have like a standard team that applies Netflix's standards or their practices? I'm
not really sure. I mean, like we're also all unionized, so the union plays a really big role in your pay, your work conditions, when meals are, how much time you need in between days. So I think you need like 10 hours between shooting. So you can't go home for like 7 hours and then be called back. Yeah, but I don't really know Netflix's business side. But a lot of their shows are like very different and very different teams and stuff like that. I think they're just kind of like the big production company, the big studio over it all.
Did you find that you were working with, like, because the video is the big part of it, you're in front of the camera, that video team, did you find that they were like isolated to the one project, or did you find that some people were bouncing between Riverdale? Like, how does that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on a few sets where I know crew members from other shows I've worked on. So Vancouver, obviously a very interconnected community with the film community.
Yeah.
I see hair and makeup that I've met from other productions. Like, oh, you're working on this now? Like, that's so cool. I see crew members, camera department that I've seen in, like, you know, working on multiple shows that I've been on. Yeah, so I guess they hire a team of professionals. Usually, like, a lot of the professionals are local, and then maybe some of the producers or directors they'll bring in from other cities and stuff like that. But yeah, people go from show to show, movie to movie, just like, yeah.
And how big is like the average team, like production wise?
Everywhere, like a small crew is like 30 people. A big crew is like 150 people. Like Lost in Space probably has like 100. Like on set, there's probably about 100 people, and then like the whole team, I don't know, like 200. Actually, with all the animators and everything, there's probably like, I don't know. I'm just pulling numbers out my ass, but there's like 100 people on set, I'd say. Yeah.
So have you ever been starstruck on set? Say like first day you show up and you see who's on the list and who you're filming with?
Yeah. So I was working on Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency with Elijah Wood, you know, from Lord of the Rings and other stuff. And I had known, you know, oh shit, he's in this scene that I'm in today. Like, I'm going to get to meet him. This is pretty cool. And before they film the scene, usually they have like the director and all the actors stand in a circle with their scripts, and they just read the scene out. They just do a reading, and then they do a blocking. A blocking is where they figure out where everyone's going to stand at what moments and stuff like that. And so the reading, I just look up, and he's just there, like where you are, Brandon, like just right across from me. I'm like, oh shit, like he's right there. And then after that, I had a little conversation with him, and just instantly, he has this way of making you feel like you're just talking to anyone. Like it's I don't know what it is, but there's some sort of grace that's just making people not feel intimidated by you. I feel like it's like a pretty hard, I feel like some people just have it and some people don't, and it's not even in anything he's saying or something. It's just somehow the energy, it's just right away you feel like once you start talking to him, you just feel a lot more comfortable and like not like you're talking to, like, you know. Yeah, so that was really cool, and I didn't get to talk to him a lot, but he was really, really nice. And then JTechApple, JTechApple, he plays Archie on Riverdale. He's actually because all my scenes in Riverdale I've been with him, and he's hilarious. He's such a jokester. He's like so funny, and just a super genuinely nice guy. So yeah, and then I met Camila Mendez. The first time I met Camila Mendez, she plays Veronica on Riverdale. So I met her on set, but before that, I met her at a smoothie bar in Vancouver, and I was like, oh wow, that's Camila Mendez. And so I was like, I went up to her and I was like, hey, I love your character on Riverdale. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. And then I was like, yeah. And then I was like, should I say anything? Should I not? Is it the end of the conversation? I don't know. And I was like, did you see today's episode yet? And she was like, yeah, I watched it this morning. And then I'm like, okay, should I keep on talking or is this the end of the conversation? And I was like, did you watch it on Netflix? Like, this is a stupid question. She looked at me and she's like, yeah. And then I was like, all right, have a good day.
Were you in that episode?
No, this is before I was on the show. Yeah, this was before I was on the show.
Nice.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just like was trying to think of things to say.
Did she recognize you when were you guys on set?
I told her about that time, and she was like, "Oh, that's so funny," but I don't think she remembered it. Yeah, but I mean, she probably has like 15 of those conversations a day.
So the next thing is like, how long does stuff take to film, and what is like a production schedule? Like, how long is pre-planning usually, the actual filming process, editing, and then whether it goes to like final review? Like, I know you have a lot of like film terms, like blocking. I've never heard of that before. In our case, we just hit the record button and put the stuff where it needs to go. Yeah. But like, yeah, what's like a production schedule? Because like 7 months sounds insane for someone coming from like the YouTube world. It's like 7 hours sometimes to get a video done and edited.
Yeah, on most shows I've been on, they film about an episode every 2 weeks. So maybe they're running like, they're trying to get like the bigger the budget, usually the less you're filming. So maybe a really big budget thing, you're filming about 4 minutes of footage a day. So of the filming that day, that'll be edited into about maybe 4 minutes of the movie, right? And maybe on a lower budget thing, you're trying to get like 14 minutes of your show a day filmed. Yeah. And yeah, they usually do like an episode over 10 days, so 2 weeks. And you know, sometimes they do what's called block shooting, which is where you'll be shooting a scene from episode 14, and then an hour later you'll be shooting a scene from episode 6, or you're shooting a movie and you're shooting the final scene on like the 4th day of shooting, and then you're shooting like the initial scene on like the 17th day of shooting, and like you jump around. So you really have to have a good comprehension and have decided already like how your character is going to change over the course of the movie, stuff like that. You really have to study the script well if you're doing a block shoot, especially. Whereas other things, they like to shoot it like they like to kind of start near the beginning and then film the next scenes and then film the next scenes. So I mean, I know Castaway, that movie with Tom Hanks, I believe it was filmed kind of like in real time, like he grows all his beard and everything, and I think that was all real. And they, you know, when they do time jumps in it, that was a real time that they didn't film for, stuff like that. Yeah. So it all depends on the approach and the amount of, you know, how, you know, the economy, how economical you can afford to be or not afford to be. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
And does like every film have like a reshoot period where they do like a few spare days, and if there's any blocks here and there that have a bit of holes, or they feel like it, or the editor may have looked at it and said, yeah, we need to call a reshoot on that.
Sometimes we need to reshoot. Sometimes like with Lost in Space, like our end dates get pushed back all the time, and like, oh, we're not actually ending on like the 14th anymore, we're ending on the 26th, and then it's like, nope, we're ending the next month. And like yeah, I mean, they kind of like own a lot of us for a lot of that period of time because of the contracts, not in a bad way or anything, but like yeah, we kind of like, for these months we answer to their call.
So does it like for contracts, does that go based on the number of days you shoot, the number of episodes, the amount of time it takes, or is it different per project?
It's different per project. And like with pay, like quite often you'll be paid a day rate. So you have like a certain amount of pay for the day, and then maybe overtime if you're working more than 8 or 10 hours. And then if you have a bigger role on a show, maybe they'll start paying you episodically. So you get paid a flat rate for on every episode you're in, whether you have one line in it or you have like, you know, maybe one episode you only have one scene, and the next episode you have like 10 scenes, but you'll be paid the same amount for both episodes. It's just a flat rate. And then for movies, you know, they can do day rates, or they can do flat rate for the whole movie, right?
What's like your preference? Just based on
whichever one gets me more
Yeah,
money in the end.
Speaking of more money coming your way, when a season renews, like Lost in Space, how did that affect the money that you had coming in?
Well, I was on like an episode to episode contract day rate for season 1, and then when they wanted me back for season 2, they gave me essentially a job promotion. They promoted me to the status of a series regular, and they put me on episodic pay, and I signed what's called a 7-year option, which means that I'm kind of signed to them for up to 7 years. And now it's been announced that they're going to make season 3 the final season. They're going to make it a trilogy. And so I'll probably be out of that contract in a year or so. But
so it's like within the 7 years, if they plan to make more seasons, you're due to come back, kind of thing. Or is there ever a situation that kind of like answered my next question a bit? Is there ever it's such a big team, right? Is there ever a scenario where a main actor might have a conflict in schedule, or they don't want to come back, or something like that, because there's just so many variables that have to come together in order to have a complete story and film to go on?
It's kind of like in the 7-year option, like they have I forget what it's called. It's called like first option on me or something. They basically get to sign off on all my other work, so they get to approve if I'm allowed to do a project or not, right? Making sure it doesn't conflict. And so, with the 7-year thing, it's kind of like, I'm kind of agreeing to, until the show's over, I'm agreeing to be with them for up to 7 years, and maybe my pay will increase by like 5% every year or something. Like they have like stuff like that in the contract. And yeah.
Makes sense why Mike Ross and Rachel Zane left after the 7 years. I think it was actually like season 8 or season 9 of Suits where they where they headed out.
Yeah, but even like in the case of like, say, Millie Bobby Brown, I heard she was like on a per episode basis now at this point, that scale. What if like their overall like status, say the show blows up, they're not expecting it to, if you're in the middle of your contract and all of a sudden you're getting offered like major roles in movies and like A-listers and all that kind of stuff, and you're still within that 7-year option, what's like kind of...
Sometimes they have like renegotiation clauses. So like after the third season, if it's still going on, then you have the option to renegotiate the pay, right? So like for some shows like Modern Family or something, where it becomes an international super hit, right? Then they have the option after a few seasons to renegotiate, like, well, this pay doesn't really make sense anymore based on how much the show's earning, stuff like that. So those kind of things exist. And also, but generally, like if you're working for good people, like they don't want you to be unhappy. So, if you really, I'm feeling like my character's not really adding that much to the story, or I'm just really not feeling connected to this anymore, you can have those conversations with the producers or whatever and talk to them about possibly, writing you out or writing your death in or something. Like that kind of stuff happens because ultimately, like, they don't want you to, I mean, I'm sure this gets abused a lot, but like if you're working for good people, like they don't want you to be unhappy, right? And if you're unhappy too, you're not going to probably be performing very well either. So, and
in the industry, you probably run into the same group of people often. It's like a group of producers and this and that, so they want to have like a good relation with a pool of actors, or am I wrong?
Maybe. I mean, I can see that happening like with more A-listers and stuff. I don't really have like experience like that. But yeah, there is a lot of people though in Hollywood, and a lot of different producers and directors and production companies and everything.
Do you find that you need to be an A-lister or have experience? And to reference the point from, what's the one, Millie Bobby Brown, what's her show that she's big with?
Stranger
Things. So the guy that plays Billy, I watched his acting tape, and then I watched his interview, and he said that was his first ever major audition, and he pointed out that because no one knew who he was, it actually played as a point of leverage for him to get the role.
It was also kind of like Crazy Rich Asians. Apparently, that actor, it might have been his first movie. The main character, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if the role is perfect for someone, then the studio, of course, like hires people sometimes. Like everyone has their first big role, right?
I guess to segue that would be, do you find that social media or having a following on social media plays a role in actually getting a role?
I'm sure it plays a role in a lot of, like, getting a lot of roles. Like, I'm sure it plays a role with some casting people.
Do they require you to advertise?
They sometimes require me to advertise. Sometimes it's like the artist will, or the performer will have a minimum of 5 social media posts regarding the release. Also, like, sometimes you're not. So when I was saying earlier that like Lost in Space has to sign off on other projects I do, sometimes it won't conflict, but maybe they won't let me do a certain project because it's that project is set for release right around when Lost in Space is set for release, right? And they don't want me advertising both shows at once, kind of thing. So there's stuff like that too. But sometimes there's like social media clauses. Sometimes, you don't have to do stuff like that.
But if you're in it, you probably want to show like this is a show coming out. And
I was just saying, like, for certain production companies, like maybe Snapchat or something like that, they want performers with big social media followings because that's a big part of their fan base
YouTubers
and their marketing, right? Yeah.
Summer McKeen and Dylan did a show on Snapchat. I don't really follow the Snapchat movies, but I know they go with like the big creators. They sign like some crazy exclusive deal. They've got to be paying pretty good for that stuff. But
I'm sure they get a lot of viewers on those things. But
a lot of people on Instagram just got so big off of certain shows, like for example, like Riverdale and like Stranger Things, how that completely blew up, and a lot of these people are like Vancouver based and stuff. And like with the price of social media integrations and sponsorships nowadays, it's like curious to think what they value the price of a post in that industry is versus influencer space.
Different productions value it differently, but there's still definitely productions that will hire you even if you don't have social media. And they can do their own production. They can do their own promotion too. It's not really always like the actor's job to promote the show. Like the show can still promote, and ultimately, like, I think people also want a good performance, stuff like that. So, there's some really, also, like, I think it'd be really sweet to be like so famous that like I didn't need to have social media or anything. Like a lot of really big actors don't have social media because everyone already knows who they are, and you can just watch one of their movies, right? But yeah, it definitely, can help with a lot of stuff.
Have you ever been on set where like a scene was improv, like someone forgot their lines and then the improv actually was better and made the final cut?
Like I feel like I've seen some movies. Like the big ones behind the scenes with like Leonardo DiCaprio level actors. They'll go by the script and then they'll try to do a take where it's just like almost like a blind take. They just let it flow, and if it ends up working, they end up going with that. But at least they have like that backup option with the actual script.
There's some great scenes like in Django when he slams the glass and cuts himself.
Oh yeah, that was real, and he just kept on going.
Yeah.
Or like the Joker. When the Joker's outside the hospital, this is Heath Ledger, and he's pressing the explosive button, and it was supposed to explode, but I guess like the special effect didn't work, and he's just like, click, 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 and he's like, and he's like, and like that was apparently improv, and he just kept on, like, a lot of people would have been like, click, and be like, okay, cut, like let's keep on, but he just kept on doing it, and then I guess they got it to explode, and it's awesome. They kept it in the movie. It's so good.
What's like the funniest onset story you have? Because like the idea that comes to mind is like an onset mistake. Game of Thrones, when they had like the Aquafina bottle. It's like set in whatever year.
There's an Aquafina bottle in Game of Thrones?
Yeah, and I think that the second... they kept it? They kept it. Well,
they didn't notice?
The first time
noticed,
it was an accident.
not even in the final
because they could have edited that out like digitally.
Yeah, but they didn't notice, and I think sometimes they do a re-upload kind of thing with the TV agency, but I think in the following season, if I remember right, they may have done it on they might have put like a Starbucks cup or something on purpose.
Starbucks, yeah.
It might have been on purpose.
It's just a meme now?
Yeah, I think they just rolled with it afterwards.
That's funny that they rolled with it. I like that. Funny story.
Has there been like a camera? There's been some movies where you could see the guy with the gimbal running across, and he's like in the wrong frame, and he's like wearing the vest, and you just see him. It must have been like a war scene where everybody's running the same direction, and you see the guy with the gimbal.
I was shooting somewhere that was really cold. I think I was shooting in Ontario. Yeah, if I'm remembering this correctly, I was shooting a movie in the cold, and I did like a whole scene. I did the take, like, and I thought it was a really, really good take, and then I had like my huge off off-screen gloves on for the whole thing, and like no one realized, no one told me to take them off, and so we had to like reshoot it. But
has there ever been a mistake that is like so
Needed
bad
in.
that you considered not saying anything because they've already wrapped up like every single thing and you're like,
oh man, no, but yeah, I could see if they had already been like cut, moving on, and then I realized
everybody's makeup's
like,
already gone.
yeah. Oh man, was I wearing these for the scene? Oh shit, yeah. Yeah, and then a kind of funny on-set experience is Toby Stevens, who plays John Robinson on Lost in Space. He's the son of Dame Maggie Smith, the actor Maggie Smith. She plays Professor McGonagall in the Harry Potter series. You know, incredible actor. And so it was like my first day on set for Lost in Space, and my dad texted me like that. Oh, one of the actors on the show you're on is Maggie Smith's son. And I get this text, and I'm in hair and makeup, and I'm talking to one of the makeup people I just met. I'm like, did you know like one of the actors here is Maggie Smith's son? And Toby, who I didn't know he was there, just turns around in his chair right there, and he's like, oh, I'm Maggie Smith's son. And I'm like, oh, I love your mom. And then he's like,
that's what Brandon was saying in the parking lot.
Yeah, I love your mom. And then he was like, I love my mom too.
Nice.
I was like, that makes sense. Yeah.
You've been real smooth with those, hey?
Yeah.
Did you watch it
I
on
get
Netflix?
kind of awkward sometimes.
And I Love Your Mom? Hey, dude.
I love your mom. Did you watch it on Netflix? I love your mom. Yeah.
That's good, man. It comes from a genuine place.
So you brought a few props with you,
yeah.
Including some of like the scripts, the stuff that you wore. Where should we start? The scripts or the scripts are? I think that'd be a cool one. So I had Ajay bring his script. It is about as big as the binder of lawyer papers I had to sign this morning. It's my first time seeing an actual script, so we're gonna have him talk about like what the techniques are to memorizing it, how much of it you have to memorize for a certain scene, and just we'll show it on video for this the YouTube version, but I think trying to audiolize the experience of reading the script.
Yeah. We're going to audiolize it.
What's the process of memorization?
Well, the first thing you got to do is like you have to understand the story you're telling, right? So for this show, Reboot the Guardian Code, we got all 20 episodes at the beginning, whereas other shows you might get further on episodes as you're filming, but we got all 20 at the beginning. So I had to read through all of this, multiple times, get a deep understanding of the story we're telling, of all the different arcs, of my character's arc, of my relationship with each person in the show, and how my character changes. And you kind of have to internalize all that and really familiarize yourself with it. So a lot of it, honestly, is just reading and reading and reading and reading. And then...
Do you ever mix like episodes by accident? Like you think like when you're memorizing a line very specifically, do you ever like, oh, is that from episode 18 or episode 1?
Well, it's not like I memorized this whole thing and then go to set and like, I know we're filming episode 14, scene 6, page 2 here, and I remember this line. Like, you take it day by day. And so you get a good comprehension of everything beforehand, and then you take it day by day. You know which scenes you're shooting on which day, and you prepare, for what's coming up. You can't prepare fully for the whole thing just off the bat, right? And so you take it day by day, and
for someone that's listening, you got a tab system going on the right side, and they're color coded. Take us through the color coding and what that means.
3 years ago. Do I remember?
You signed the pink ones and you witnessed the yellow ones.
Let's see. I can probably figure this out just by looking at it. Yellow.
And is everybody's line on this sheet, or is it just yours?
Oh, dude, there's a
right there
diagram there. Nice.
Oh, these are all the different areas. Okay, so it says orange is all the ones that are... So these are all my scenes in the show, all the scenes that I'm in. And the different colors are different locations. So all the orange scenes are like in room 0, which was like our base. And then pink is in the high school that we all go to school at. Yellow is in cyberspace, because this show we went into cyberspace. Blue is it says Judy's house. And then... if it's a Post-it color, then it's other other locations. So I think I organized it like that. So, because I know why I organized this. I was organizing this because we were block shooting, which is where like you do it location by location. So we'd shoot for the whole season. We'd do like a week in room 0, and we'd shoot every scene that takes place in room 0 over the whole show, right? So we'd be jumping from episode to episode to episode. And so I guess it was just so for room 0 week, maybe I would just study the orange tabs, right? For the 3 days we were shooting at Judy's house, maybe I'd just study the blue tabs, and yeah.
And is there like what's like the system? Like I see there's like numbers and on like each line and the way it's like formatted, and is it everybody's line from your scene, or is it just yours?
So every script I've ever gotten has been in typewriter font.
Yeah.
They have watermarks on the back that either just say confidential, or often they say your name. Whether you're a crew member or an actor or whatever, it'll say your name all across the whole page. So if anything gets leaked, they know who to blame. And
it says like tight on, angle on. Is that for the camera guy?
Yeah. So it's a pretty comprehensive script. So for example, it says like, so 3, so that's probably scene 3. Yeah, that's scene 3 of this episode, right? So we're on page 4, scene 3. So INT room 0, same time. So interior room 0, same time. Tight on, the title screen of the Fortress Command game. And then all the lines are also numbered. This isn't in every script, but all the lines are also numbered. So you can be like at line 71. Or
is there like a prompt on set?
Line 67.
Like somebody standing off camera that is like line 72,
no,
Jay, you got to say.
There's no teleprompter or anything. There is what's called a script supervisor, and their job is to make sure that everything is according to the script, that the lines are being said right, that continuity is maintained.
Has there ever been a day where you just, I don't know, maybe coffee was mixed wrong, woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and you get to set and you're like, I completely forgot everything I had to say?
I mean, like, if you're having trouble with it one day, they'll help you through it. Yeah. And like I said, like, it's not only take it day by day, it's also take it scene by scene, you know. And you can right when they yell cut, you can take like your sides out of your pocket, or right off the side, and you can read what what your lines are that you're forgetting. But for me, like, memorizing lines isn't really a struggle because it's something that comes pretty naturally to me, as well as like memorizing lyrics and stuff. Most of my prep isn't like, people think like, oh, you got to memorize your lines. Like, that's not my prep. My prep is like thinking about what the lines mean, thinking about why I'm saying them, thinking about like how I would react to what's happening around me. And I generally, like, I don't highlight my lines. I highlight the most important parts of what other people are saying that make me do or say what I say. So if someone's saying like, how's your day going? And I'm like, oh, my day's going this, right? That's the saying. I'll highlight like, how's your day going, or something like that. Because if I think about how's your day going, then I'll have a more natural, and I know what I'm going to say, right? Then I'll have a more natural response, like I'm actually responding to that kind of question, rather than just being like, how's your day going? Well, and then, does that make any sense? Kind of.
Yeah, it's because I wasn't sure. Yeah, like in a lot of cases, it's like whether you memorize it or you read it to get in character. So like my biggest fear is memorization. Like there's certain things I can memorize, but if it was just to memorize like plain text, like a script or like lyrics, that's what I've never been good at. So it's cool to see. So this is all 20 seasons of your
all
lines,
20 episodes of Reboot, seasons. The Guardian Code.
Like for one page, how much screen time is that approximately? Like 2 seconds or?
No. One page is probably about a minute, maybe.
Oh wow!
Like 45 seconds, I'd say. Yeah, kind of. Like often it's around how long it takes you to read it. Like most scripts are 100 to 130 pages. Just like most movies are like 100 to 130 minutes long, right?
Oh, so it actually has everybody's lines on here. I'm seeing Parker, Austin, and
oh yeah, everyone's lines are on a script. Yeah, it's not just your lines; it's the whole scene.
Whatever you say,
it's the screen direction. Yeah. Detention is in progress. Mr. Dulesky sits at his desk reading. Physics equations cover the whiteboard, right? So there's.
Are you allowed to add like a word or two here and there to make it more natural, or do they want you to?
you can, but they may ask you to scrap it or to do it, the way. But you can definitely do that.
But I'm
You can
guessing like
definitely
professionals write these scripts in the context of it being like read out. Like they practice it and they see how it fits in with the line. Because whenever we get a script for sponsorship stuff, it's like the most corny. Like nobody's ever read this before. And
you need to say it exactly.
And we're kind of looking at it like we got to improvise on this because it just doesn't sound right. But I'm guessing with like movie script, there's like large teams that sit around and they read it out loud and they ensure.
Yeah, I mean they make so many adjustments. Everything is in there for a specific reason. It's been decided on by a group of people, and it's been like read over and over and thought about over and over again. So it's all very intentional. If you say something a little different because maybe it feels more natural or something, like if they like it, they'll like it. If not, then the script supervisor will come up to you and just be like, hey, just to let you know, like your line's actually this.
You miss an at or a, one letter.
Yeah. But some shows, like I've heard this is more common with kids shows too. Like it's super strict. Like you have to say exactly the line sometimes, or like, because it's all like approved, and people sometimes at the network like don't like it. That's not how we wrote it, whatever. I don't know.
What's like right before you're about to do the scene, how do you fall into character? Like, do you do some breath work before? Like, is there something like usually a thing that you do?
I mean, the biggest thing with acting, like a lot of things, is it just takes like your total concentration, and the more concentrated and focused you are, like usually the more you can get into the scene. And usually for me, like I work well under pressure. The adrenaline of quiet on the set and like lights, and like sound, speeding, rolling. All right, take someone, take two. That's when they do the little thingy, and then
he's laughing because we're always just whenever we film, it's just like you got the mic on or something, and then like 1 in every 10 videos will have no audio.
The seriousness of it, and everyone getting quiet, and everyone getting ready, and them yelling all those things, and then in action, it kind of just snaps me into it usually.
And there's like such a big team, and everybody is so specific on knowing what their task is that there's very rarely any technical or fundamental errors, right? Or is there ever like takes where like, oh shoot, like it's out of focus? Because I never hear about that.
Not often. They tend to. I mean, actually, I bet you that. I mean, I don't really hear about that stuff, right? It's not like we all stand there afterwards and talk about, how we want to do it differently, or like, they discuss that, and the actors, like an actor's job is to act, and that's kind of our only job, and so. When they're discussing how they want it to be different, or maybe they want the camera to move quicker, like they direct the acting just as much as they direct all that other stuff. But I don't really hear about that side.
So everybody's got their team, they're focused, and they know what they're doing. Yeah. Editors are like their own team as well, animators, and so like everyone they bring in is very specific to their field. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then a director somehow is just there for everything and like looking over everything. It's crazy. Yeah, I couldn't imagine being a director. It'd be I don't know how they.
What
sleep.
Is it about the director
they get like
that
5 hours of sleep?
You think you couldn't be?
I think you gotta understand, like as actors we get a lot of breaks throughout the day, right? We get a lot of downtime when we're not filming, and it's still super tiring because it takes so much of your attention. And also sometimes like I like to stay in the zone all day, so I won't bring my phone on set sometimes, right? And just I don't know, even like when you're not filming, like when you're just waiting somewhere, it can really tire you out for some reason. But a director is just always going, like they're doing so much, and they work like 18 hours a day sometimes, and like literally and they have to prep for the next day when they get home, and they've been prepping for 2 weeks for that episode. And yeah, I don't know, it just sounds like.
And every team is asking for something from the director. It's like all directions, like this person needs this, this person needs that needs to be sorted out. And
it's just a really big job. And actually they usually bring in, like with TV shows, they rarely have like a director direct 2 episodes in a row. Rarely. Oh, wow. They'll almost always swap directors or have a new director each episode, so that, because there's usually only a weekend in between like the filming of the last episode and the next episode, right? And you can't prep for it in a weekend. So usually while one director is directing, the current episode, the director for the next episode will be spending that time to prep that and so on and so forth.
That makes a lot of sense. So what's next for Jay, man? You've talked about how you loved to sing in high school and how that's transcended into your work.
Yeah.
What's coming up for you?
Well, I just recorded, I just went to New York and I recorded a 10-track album of all songs that I wrote. And they're produced by a family friend of mine who's actually one of the members of Bon Jovi, Everett Bradley. And he's this insane percussionist. He's one of the founding members of Stomp, which is like a super famous Broadway show. It features like, we use these crazy, awesome New York session musicians. I think there's 13 musicians on the whole project.
Wow.
And almost everything was played by a real, like a live human. Even if it's like an 808 or like an electronic hi-hat, it's played by someone hitting a drum pad, like live recording to it. So it's got that like live human feel to it.
It's very Queen.
Yeah, there is some kind of like Queen elements, but I probably cover like 5 or 6 genres of music on the album, everywhere from like soft acoustic folk to like classic rock to hip hop to pop to even like emo rock, punk rock. It was fun to create like such a eclectic project of songs that I've written over the past like 7 or 8 years. And I just kind of really wanted to wear my heart on my sleeve with it and just be myself and, make something unique. That's going to be coming out in, I think I'm going to start dropping singles actually this summer. And then the album's probably going to be coming out closer to the end of the year.
Obviously, like there's a lot of similarities and differences between like music and acting. Where do you see those similarities and differences, and how important is the balance in your life between having both sides of like your personal projects as well as the acting side?
So actually, I think music kind of actually taught me how to act in a way, because in grade 12, I played the Phantom in our high school's musical of Phantom of the Opera.
After I graduated.
Yeah. And it's a musical, and I'd always been like a singer. I've always written songs, and it's really easy for me to just get into the emotion when I'm singing a song and just get immersed in it. And I found like when I was on stage as Phantom singing those songs as well as acting, the fact that I was singing them almost like channeled that muscle that I had practiced so much with singing, the muscle of just getting into the emotion of it. And it kind of taught me how to also do that with acting. And honestly, even though I had been like stage acting for 7 years at that point, that's when I like really, when it clicked, like that's when I really figured out how to act. And I was just there on stage, and the audience, I wasn't even thinking about the audience. I wasn't even thinking about anything other than like exactly, I was just like fully in it. And that's kind of when I realized like how to act, for me at least, which is just to get fully immersed, and then stuff just comes naturally,
Sounds like a superpower, man. You see it a lot, like for example, 50 Cent in Power. You've seen that show. And then there's Machine Gun Kelly. He's made that transition into Netflix. He was on that Bird's Brain or something, the show with Sandra Bullock.
Bird
Box. That's the one.
Machine Gun Kelly was in that?
Yeah, he was. He's played,
No
and then
way.
he played a drummer in one of the remakes of a old band on their Come Up.
He also got Megan Fox in his music video.
He does, yeah. I believe they're dating as well. But
Dude,
yeah, you
spreading
see a
rumors
lot
on
of
the
that
show.
is go to the Full Send Instagram. They upload
A
pictures.
great source.
Anyway, you see a lot of that, and it is a superpower where like they naturally transition from music to acting as if it's seamless.
Yeah, I mean, like Justin Timberlake too is a great
And
example,
JT,
right?
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, and you always see like famous musicians getting like having cameos in movies, and quite often they're pretty good actors.
Mhm.
Like, and that's always kind of struck me, and I think it's probably like that experience of getting emotionally into a song, like you're performing, right? And maybe you wrote this song about a heartbreak that like barely means anything to you anymore. But when you're singing it, you just let that emotion fly through the lyrics, right? And that is acting. Like even though maybe it's based on personal experience, maybe it's not, because a lot of singers also write and perform songs that aren't directly personal experiences. So it's literally a type of acting. And when I'm in like a recording booth or something, and I really want to convey the emotion, like I go to the same kind of place I go to when I act, right? The same kind of concentration, the same kind of focus, same kind of just getting into the zone and trying to put myself in that place emotionally and only live that, at least for the 3 minutes while I'm recording that song, So it's kind of it's a form of acting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really good point, by the way. You go ahead, Justin.
You talked us. You kind of gave us a demonstration prior to us hitting the record buttons with like the book that you read and the exercises that you do. What are the most beneficial methods from what you have found to kind of continue to refine your craft and practice different techniques that could be applicable to acting and maybe even music as well?
I think like for me, when I got my first big role, which was Reboot, the responsibility of having 20 episodes and my audience going from like a few hundred in a theater to like literally millions of people, and the pressure and the feeling of like I'm one of the lead actors in this. I owe it to everyone. There's hundreds and hundreds of people putting their time, their passion, their money into this project. I owe it to not just myself, but everyone to do the absolute best job I can, especially like when my performance could affect how the show is perceived, right? And so that kind of pressure really, I think, makes people step up their game and really give it their all. And so I was lucky to have that kind of pressure, I think. But like without that pressure, you just have to treat every audition as not only an opportunity to network yourself. Like say you don't get a role, you still got your audition in front of people who are casting tons of stuff, people who are making tons of productions, right? And if you made an impression on them, that's gonna, that could come back to you in the future in a good way. But also just like, it's a muscle, and the more often you're doing it, the easier it is to like, to act, right? And so I'd say just auditions are great. Auditions are one of the best practice of all, right? And an actor's job is kind of to audition, that's like kind of an actor's job. And then when you get a role, maybe like now that's your job. But like apart from that, like actors are just full-time auditioners. So there's that. There's the highlighting other people's lines and like the stuff in their line that triggers you to think of whatever you respond with, stuff like that. And like in the moment actually listening to that and processing that part of the sentence that they said, which is kind of maybe how your brain will be doing in real life. And this book, I'm just kind of getting into this recently, but this is a book I have called On Method Acting by Edward Dwight Easty. And they were talking about sense memory, where so the other day in my bed, I was just sitting up in my bed, and I was practicing drinking fake different liquids, like practicing drinking hot coffee and being really specific. Like as you bring it to your lips, you start to smell it. And this is all miming. Like I'm not even holding coffee, right? And then as you put the glass against your lips, you have to feel the temperature. And then first it enters your mouth and you smell it, and then you feel the temperature, and then finally you taste it, and then you swallow it. And normally when people swallow stuff, they like take a few sips, right? And then you do it with like what you imagine is like a cold glass of milk and stuff like that. And it's the total concentration and activating your senses, which is kind of like a big fundamental part of acting. And there was also the one I was telling you guys about lying in the sun, and you're pretending you're lying in the sun under like a scorching heat, and you have to be very specific, thinking like, oh, what parts of your face do you feel it on the most? Maybe it's the bridge of your nose, or maybe it's your upper lip or your forehead, right?
In Trevor's case, the forehead.
And you have to be super specific and really full concentration and be super specific. And then you literally start to sweat as if you're in the sun, because you're tricking your body into having the same response by pretending to feel those feelings with your imagination, which is which is one method of acting, what people usually call method acting, which is tricking your body into having natural responses, based on like concentrating on certain memories or feelings. Yeah.
Do you hope that transcends into your acting?
Yeah. I mean, I gotta finish the book first.
I mean, like this would be like training in a sense.
Yeah, and I think another thing it just got me like I was reading it before I filmed an audition, and it just got me like, it just fired up my passion and my excitement. And passion and excitement and belief in yourself go a huge way, obviously, in how you perform in any field. But yeah, relaxing is a really big part of it. Getting your mind just on what you need to do and not distracted. If we were all like distracted in our heads during this interview, it would probably be kind of out of it a bit, right? But it's really important to just kind of concentrate. It's that kind of stuff, I guess, is like anything. Yeah.
Are we at the point now where you can give us a preview of the song?
Yeah, I can.
Got no lighter for my broken candle. My mind can't keep owing me. Got no smile like the pick on the mantle. Tell me what life is, tell me when it's over. Got one hand in the depths of a casket, other one holding on to you for the answers. Tell me what love is, 'cause I've been all over. Then I see your eyes, bed at night I lie awake and wrap in my heart. But when I see your eyes, there's nothing I can do to stop me from loving myself a little more. I'm loving myself a little more. I'm loving myself a little more. Daybreak and the sun shines, but it's a cold time, and I'm feeling kinda blue. My mind's in its darkness as I harness all the hurt I'm going through. When love turns to sulfate, start to reclaim all the trust once inside. But all of that changes, rearranges when I see those eyes. And then I see your eyes in bed at night. I lie awake and wrap in my heart. But when I see your eyes, there's nothing I can do to stop me from loving myself a little more. I'm loving, loving, I'm loving. I'm loving, loving, I'm loving. Oh, I'm loving myself a little more. I'm loving myself. And I got no lighter for my broken candle. My mind can't keep owing me. Got no smile like the pick on the mantle. Tell me what life is, tell me when it's over. Got one hand in the depths of a casket, other one holding on to you for the answers. Tell me what love is, 'cause I've been all over.